Should Jordyn Tyson sit out the rest of the year or should he play? We sent Anthony Totri on the scene to ask him himself. He should be here any second now, right? Happy Thursday and welcome into PHNX Sun Devils, of course, presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 15% off your first order. I am usually the passenger princess of the show, but I'm sitting in the driver's seat today. My name is Erik Ruby, and joined alongside me, it is not Anthony Totri. We still can't find him. We think he's in Cabo or somewhere like that. So we tapped in with ALLCITY NFL draft expert Fran Duffy to discuss Jordyn Tyson, Sam Leavitt, and where those Sun Devils stand heading into the 2026 NFL draft. As a reminder, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are a member today, like Sharon and Wannikin in our chat right now. Get access to exclusive emojis, exclusive member-only content, and get the nice green lettering next to your name. It's all a super fun time. Fran, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I feel like a lot has changed since the last time PHNX Sun Devils tapped in with the draft side of things at ALLCITY a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, obviously, look, there was bad news last week when it came to the announcement of Sam Leavitt, but obviously Jordyn Tyson has been dealing with injuries. I've been doing a little bit more work behind the scenes on some of these guys as well. So, yeah, a lot to cover, certainly, with this ball team.
For those who aren't familiar with what you do for ALLCITY, which is PHNX's parent company, and especially for our college football freaks and fanatics, which are in here, what do you got working on? What are you cooking up for them?
Yeah, I mean, right now, just a ton of draft content. So you can go and check out the Die Hard Draft Guide. So if you're a diehard of PHNX, you can go and check out all the players that I've written up. I've done full in-depth reports on almost 175 players across the country, a handful of Sun Devils in there. When you look at my scouting report, it's biased, statistical, it's the pros and cons of the play on the tape, it's projection moving forward, it's insider quotes from people behind the scenes and some public around the player. So full in-depth scouting reports, that's all in the Die Hard Draft Guide, how I project those guys moving forward. I've also got the all NFL draft newsletter. Subscribe, get an email from me every single Friday, everything that's on my mind from a draft standpoint, a college football standpoint. And then this week, we've got the debut of the All NFL Draft podcast as well. I'm going to be doing that weekly. It might be a couple times a week as we get into the meat of draft season as well, but that's going to be a weekly podcast. For the maiden voyage here this week, my friend Dane Brugler from The Athletic joined me. We went position by position. We talked a little bit of Jordyn Tyson in that episode, so you can go check that out wherever podcasts can be found.
What I love about our ASU chat is they're so tapped into the college football side of things. So you are well covered on the draft side with Fran and company, written, podcast, everything in between. But Fran, I want to start talking about Jordyn Tyson today. We'll get a little bit to Sam Leavitt at the end, but obviously Jordyn Tyson has now missed the last couple of games with the hamstring injury that he suffered against Texas Tech. But what was your evaluation of him? Just remind people going into the season and at the beginning of the season versus what you kind of see him as now that we sit in November.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at Jordyn Tyson, one of the things that has always stood out to me about him is, you know, the effort with which he's able to execute his craft. I mean, he's one of the best technicians at the receiver position at the college level. So you talk about his release package against press, against off coverage, his ability to get their spot, create separation for himself. He's able to do that at such a high level. And going back to his tape from 2024, you're able to see that. So something I always felt was a big part of his game. He could play through contact. He's strong. That's a very important trait for me as well. So to me, like those two things I felt really good about. Now, athletically, I thought he was solid. I didn't think like a true game breaker, and I still feel that way. I don't think that he's like, when you look at Malik Neighbors, some of the receivers that have gone in the top 15, top 20 in recent years. Like, I don't know that he's that level of athlete, which to me that can kind of cap your ceiling in terms of how high you get drafted in the NFL draft, especially if you're not like a super big body that's always going to consistently win above the rim. But for me, the thing for me was just the level of drops, the amount of drops you saw from Jordyn Tyson in years prior. And so when I'm watching Jordyn Tyson last summer, I'm like, all right, there are things that I really like. There are some questions with his game. I do think that he's a starter, but like, how high am I willing to invest in a player that has, some athletic limitations? Like, there's a capped ceiling there, but then also with the drops issues. This year, like the hands have been outstanding. And actually, that I've seen the biggest change with my overall projection.
Okay, when you mentioned the athletic side of it, because I think the hands with him, my biggest thing is he always tries to catch things one-handed. I think part of that is where the ball is being thrown to him, and especially if there's maybe a little bit of better placement in the NFL. But as an athlete, do you feel like he's gotten better? Because when we talked to him over the summer, he had mentioned that he'd been putting in a lot of work on that side of things and being able to bench press a bigger weight, being able to run a little bit faster. He got stronger and faster over the summer. Do you feel like that's been visible in watching his tape this year versus last year?
I think that he's always been quick, right? And I think we see that in the short area when I like release package and that his abilities as a route runner, that quickness, that short area stuff, that has always shown up. I have not always seen like the explosiveness. Now, he makes plays down the field, right? So I'm not saying that he's necessarily a slow receiver, but for a guy who's 195, which is below average weight, we'll see he comes in at by the time we get to the combine when he eventually comes out. So we'll get the official measurement there. But for a guy who's under 200 pounds, like, I can see kind of explosiveness, right? So I thought he was more of just like an average NFL athlete at the position. It didn't really change too much for me from last year to this year. I'm sure that there have been marginal improvements. That's what those guys are always trying to do, just get 1% better. So I'm sure that he has made those improvements, but I think that they're enough to necessarily move the needle for me.
So going into the year, where did you have him slotted in the draft order? Was he wide receiver 1? Was he first round? And has that bumped up based off of your evaluation this year?
Yeah, he was not wide receiver 1 from into the year. I did have Carnell Tate ahead of him. There were a couple other guys that I thought he was like right in the mix with, right? Basically how I do my board is I tier these guys into buckets, and he was in that second tier for me. I had Carnell Tate at the top, and then I had Tyson just one notch below that. So, a marginal difference in terms of the grade, but I did have Tate ahead of him. Right now, I do have Tyson as my wide receiver 1 based off what I've studied so far from the season. And that could change, maybe because Tate has had a really strong year. I still have a lot of tape to go through on all of these players, but right now, because of the consistency that Tate has shown, or that Tyson has shown at the catch point, his ability to stay healthy was also a question. We could talk through that as well. But I think when you're looking at Tyson, what I've seen from film, play strength continues to be impressive. I talked about the technical proficiency, what he does as in terms of creating his own separation, but with the hands being what they have been over the course of this season, now I'm like, you're telling me like he can't be what Jackson Smith-Njigba has been at the college level or at the NFL level this year, and the most productive receiver in the NFL. I think when you're looking at Tyson, that is within the range of outcomes. JSN, when he was coming out of Ohio State, like, not a 4-4, like our 3 kind of burner type. Like, the question with him was, can he even play outside? That was a legitimate question people had coming into this year. Is he's a slot receiver only? Can he win? Well, he's blown that out of the water, right? So I think when we're looking at Jordyn Tyson, he has the ability to win in a lot of those same ways.
I definitely see the comp between JSN and Jordyn Tyson, and he's just one of those guys. He always makes plays. He's always in the right spot. And I know sometimes it feels like lazy analysis, but when you watch the game, especially with a quarterback like Sam Leavitt, who likes to be off schedule, who likes to scramble and find guys downfield, Tyson's always in the right place at the right time and is able to make something happen. And guys who can make something happen usually translate over to the next level. You do mention, though, the injury bug with him. Yeah. Obviously, he's missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury. After our upcoming break, we'll talk about should he come back and play or should he sit out? What would be best for his future value? But does this hamstring injury, in your mind, affect how you see him coming into this draft? Because it is, the first major injury that he would have suffered so far this season. And prior to it, he's been killer.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that he ended last season with the collarbone injury, right? So that cost him the bowl game, that cost him down the stretch. A couple of years ago at Colorado, he had the season-ending knee injury that cost him most of his first season down there with ASU. So this has been a little bit of a recurring theme. They're different levels of injury that we're talking about. Some of it is kind of freak stuff, but I think when you're looking at it, it is a little fact that we've now seen, all right, this is now 3 injuries in 4 seasons for Tyson. Now, we'll talk about like whether he should come back or not. I do think when you're looking at that is definitely going to be part of the evaluation. And that's people, and rightfully so. I think when you've had 3 injuries that cost a significant amount of playing time, that is something that's going to come under scrutiny.
How different is it though that it's 3 very different injuries, right? Yeah. Like you mentioned, that's freak injuries. And unfortunately, there are guys that it just feels like freak injuries happen to more often than not, just across sports, not only in football. But considering, it's a broken bone and then it's a hamstring, it's a knee. These are all very, very different things. And he has shown after, of course, the prior 2 injuries that not only does he come back, but he can come back better. I mean, he came back from that massive, massive knee injury better, right? He comes back from the collarbone injury the next season stronger, faster, better. Who's to say that after a hamstring injury, it can't be the same? Is that something that you feel like, as far as NFL scouts go, guys who are doing their due diligence and possibly spending a premier pick on this kind of guy, do you feel like if they're trying to do a tiebreaker, it's like, hey, well, he might have gotten better from the injuries, he might have recovered, but they still happen?
Yeah, every evaluator is going to look at that a little bit differently. It's going to be based off of their previous guys have had issues with injuries, right? Like if you've been around a player, you drafted a receiver that had a similar kind of deal where it's like, oh, he had a hand and a calf and he had, a broken arm and then he had an injured collarbone. Well, yeah, he came back and there was no issue. He played his entire rookie contract in one game in 5 years. Or you might have another one. Like, like those injury issues just continue to pile up. And we've seen that with players where like some guys like just get injured. Always seem to be with the trainer, right? Well, whether it's something soft tissue or whether it's something that it's a little more severe, for whatever reason, that seems to find those guys. And so every evaluator, every receivers coach, every decision maker, they're all going to have their own individual feelings on that, and they have to weigh that. Obviously, with the film, you weigh that with the character, you bring that all together, and then when it's draft week, when you're stacking that board, and it's not just Tyson versus Carnell Tate and the rest of the receiver class, but when you're talking about a player of Tyson's caliber, it's Jordyn Tyson versus who's the top edge rusher available, who's the offensive tackle on the board, who is you start having these conversations. That's what makes it a little bit of a difficult thing to.
Well, we're going to project to see what is the best choice for Jordyn Tyson. Obviously, from an ASU fan perspective, everybody wants him to play. Still 3 more games left of the season. The Sun Devils just became bowl eligible. They still technically have a path back to the Big 12 championship, but is it worth it for Jordyn Tyson to push through this hamstring injury and return for Jeff Sims and company? Fran Duffy, ALLCITY NFL draft expert, is joining PHNX Sun Devils. We're going to continue our conversation on the other side of our first break. We all know that moment all too well. When you realize you left your favorite sunglasses on the beach or the roof of your car, or you sat on them if you're me. I've been there a lot. And luckily, I found Shady Rays. Now, here's the thing about Shady Rays. If you lose or you break them, even on day 1, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair, no guilt trip, just replacements. And I've been a notorious sunglasses breaker, loser, all sorts of everything when it comes to not being able to hold on to my shades. Funny enough, though, as soon as I got my Shady Rays just a couple of years ago, I have been able to hold on to the same pair. I don't know if it's just because I know that I have that guarantee in my back pocket, or just because these sunglasses change the game. They're made for real life. They're seriously good looking. They're polarized. They're durable, and they are not stupidly expensive. Shady Rays is the eyewear that has your back, and we've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses, and try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And speaking of people, Crown Royal would love to have people come and help out their Purple Bag project at State Farm Stadium on November 16th, because Crown Royal believes it's not what you have, it's what you give. So when it came to honoring the bravest among us, American military heroes, they wanted to do more than simply raise a glass. They wanted to give them something meaningful, to thank them for all that they've given us. Since 2010, Crown Royal has packed and distributed over 1 million purple bags and counting to soldiers and veterans, providing them with essential care and comfort from home. They continue their commitment to supporting military heroes with the goal of packing 2 million bags by 2030. People in attendance will get a chance to pack their very own Crown Royal purple bags with snacks and handwritten cards as we work with packages from home to send them to individuals that are serving across the world. It's a great cause with a great place. A Crown Royal Purple Bag Project will be at State Farm Stadium again on November 16th this year. That's just 10 days away. For more information, visit crownroyal.com/purple bag project. And make sure this Sunday you're out at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass for our Cardinals away game watch party. That's right, QB1, Jacoby Brissett, apparently the franchise future at quarterback, will continue to take the field for the Cardinals. Hang out with our PHNX Cardinals crew out at Wild Horse Pass this Sunday as the Arizona Cardinals continue their season. And can they save it without Kyler Murray? Make sure to go to gophnx.com/events to get more information on that and RSVP today. Thanks to all of you who are hanging out in the chat today. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as we continue to bring you off-week coverage as Arizona State is on a bye this weekend. Anthony Totri is out on vacation. I'm tapping in with Fran Duffy, ALLCITY NFL draft expert. You can catch all of his work over at FDuffy_NFL. Did I get that right? Did I nail it or no?
Underscore. Yeah,
no
underscore. Everything else is right.
The OG.
FDuffy NFL.
The OG, F Duffy NFL. Fran, this is a conversation that I don't think ASU fans want to have. I think in an ideal world, and maybe a world 10, 15 years ago, it would be a no-brainer. If Jordyn Tyson is healthy, if Jordyn Tyson is able to play these final 3 games of the season for Arizona State, he would play. But with the way that, athletics are today, how important the NFL draft is, do you see Jordyn Tyson, with where you evaluate him as right now, having anything to gain from coming back these final 3 weeks of the season and playing for Arizona State?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at Jordyn Tyson, and you know what? This is actually a really interesting conversation because this was a knock by some on Cardinals second-round pick Will Johnson last year. Will Johnson, the Michigan team, that team, the record went a little bit south back end of the year, and questioned, Johnson didn't come back from that hamstring injury. Was he dogging it? Was all the effort there to be able to come back? And that was a game in the pre-draft process by some, not by everybody, but by some. It's like, that's what I mean. Like, a lot of this is all going to be individually focused by each evaluator. But I think when looking at Jordyn Tyson, there is some precedent here. We mentioned that knee injury that he suffered in 2022 when he was at Colorado. He fights his way back and comes down to play the final 3 games for Arizona State in 2023. And it was that was basically a lost season at that point. He recorded in those 3 games, was basically a non-factor as a receiver. I do think that speaks to maybe what his mindset is. Now, has that mindset changed in the last couple of years as his draft stock has taken off and last season and then what he's done so far this year? There's probably a little bit more at stake. We don't know what his mindset in terms of did he come into this year knowing this is one and done for this is it for me. I'm not coming back for 2026. If that's the mindset, he might say, I'm going to try to put this on hold. Is he 100% healthy? Is he 100% healthy and then he says no? Or is it it's 7%? If we were playing for a Big 12 title this week, Sam Leavitt was healthy, then maybe I'm out there. Those are all different factors that come into talking about a decision like this for all of these athletes. So I think there are a lot of layers to this decision for Jordyn Tyson. I would say based off of what he's done in the past, I would say there's a decent chance that he could come back to play, but I don't think it's an automatic given the fact, with how ASUC has gone and with obviously the loss of Sam Leavitt as well.
Do you feel like he if he plays well over these last 3 games, does the evaluation of him get that much better? I mean, they're playing 3 not so great defenses, and they're 3 probably easiest Big 12 games the rest of the season. And he doesn't have Sam Leavitt throwing him the ball. So we don't know if he's going to actually be able to, quote unquote, stat pad like maybe some would imagine. Is there a lot for him to gain by coming back? I mean, look, we can't put ourselves in his brain, right? I'm sure he wants to play. I know he's a competitor. Like, we know that if he can be out there, he probably will be out there. But I don't know if with your hamstring issue, if that's ever going to really be 100% in about a month or so, especially if you get back to game action and play against West Virginia this upcoming Saturday after the bye week. So can he really look at a tangible future and say, my draft stock will improve if I have 3 spectacular games against West Virginia, Colorado, and Arizona?
You know, I think regardless of what the production even looks like, Eric, I think when you're looking at, let's say he comes back and he participates and he goes 5 for 80, and then he goes 4 for 110 and a touchdown, and then he has like 3 for 35 in the final game. Like, solid production over the final 3, but does set the world on fire. Keep in mind, like, the guys that he's going up against, you know, in this wide receiver class, like Carnell Tate, he's on the #1 team in college football. He's got maybe 8 games left in his schedule, right? So some of these guys have longer runways. What I would say is that what we've heard from a lot of teams in the last couple of years, as they're trying to find through, like, all right, it's a new landscape with all these players. The term that we've heard a lot is intangibly rich. You know, guys that have the care factor, right? So all these guys where it's like, you know, you're trying to find those little kernels, those little seeds that might show this guy is really made of. And so, you know, there have been a lot of instances in like the Senior Bowl where a guy gets dinged up and he fights through it, and he goes out and he doesn't just finish out the week of practice, but he's out there during the game. There have been players that have said, hey, you know what, like, that team is hurting on both. I'll play for both. I'll play defense for both teams. We've seen a lot of these instances, and when those players get drafted, the GMs point to those moments. That might seem like, oh, it was like a rainy day in where. Those are the kind of anecdotes that get brought back up during the pre-draft process as guys are getting selected. So I would say that there's a chance. It's not necessarily like, all right, well, Jordyn Tyson, if he comes back, he needs to go bonkers for it to be worth it. He might come back, and then now that's another example, just like 23, where he fought to come back, where it's like, this is an example of this guy's love for the game and just wants to be out there. Like that's another kind of book to throw in the pot there. So I do think that that's something in play. But again, like, if he's 50%, you know, we're just putting a number on it, he shouldn't force his way back out there. I think that there are a lot of factors certainly at play.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear your care factor, the intangibly rich part of it, because Jordyn is definitely that type of guy. I mean, we've obviously been able to cover him up close and personal. It was the same thing with Sam. We saw Sam fight through just some crazy lower body injuries, get dinged up multiple times, and still push his way back. You know, even though the season and the Big 12 championship hopes, they're not gone, but they certainly are, you know, what the team expected them to be, I think, going into the season. So with Tyson, I think your point is very fascinating with just him coming back alone might be enough to give him a little bit of a boost, as long as, of course, that doesn't lead to him re-injuring. And when you talk about soft tissue injuries, that, I mean, even if he is fully healthy right now, we've seen it across multiple sports that a hamstring injury can reappear, or B, force you to maybe overcompensate on another limb, and maybe that limb and that soft tissue then gets injured as well. And I do think that's something that, if you are going to be a top wide receiver picked in this draft, that you have to kind of keep in mind. One thing that you said that really piqued my attention, though, was it seemed like you, at least in your brain, didn't know if it was fully door closed on Jordyn Tyson, you know, being gone after this season. What percentage do you think, if you just had to do the Fran Duffy gut check here, like, that you think Jordyn Tyson's in the NFL next year?
I would say it's probably 75. Right?
Okay, that's lower than I thought.
Yeah,
that's
like,
lower than I thought.
I don't think it's a definite. And I'm sure that these are things that all, because honestly, like, and I wrote about this on GoPHNX.com when the Sam Leavitt news came out, is that, you know, it's possible. We've seen this in years past. You know, maybe it's injury, or maybe a team has a bad loss down the stretch. You know, I think that when you're looking at teams that have that ability to kind of go for, hey, let's make one final run, sometimes those guys all get together in a room and say like, all right, guys, do you want to do this? All right, let's see. Like Ohio State, a good example of that a year ago. Clemson in years past, they had that great defensive line that had, 4 guys go in the top 2 rounds. They all, hey, let's all come back next year, right? So I think that the possibility exists for something like that when you've got Leavitt, you've got other players on that offense that maybe aren't even eligible for this year, but it's like, hey, like, let's all come back. We'll all make one final run at it. And then next year we all come out and we're all getting paid. The possibility absolutely exists where you can have something like that happen.
And you think that the money might be a pretty big factor in that, because before it's like you start the clock on your contract in the NFL. Well, guess what? You're that much closer to an extension. But if you're making top tier money in college, it's a lot easier to say, you know what, screw it. Let's run it back.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's something that that's a factor with Sam Leavitt. That's a factor with a lot of these guys, and we'll talk about it with the Leavitt situation as well. But I think the fact that those players are able to get paid now, it does make that conversation a little bit easier to have, especially. And look, the other factor on this, and it's a big one, is Kenny Dillingham. Like, if Kenny Dillingham is still there, like all systems go.
He will be.
Yeah, that's my gut too. But if he weren't, now that obviously that changes everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I think if one of those guys leaves, I know there's some people talking about Sam Leavitt transfer portal. Again, not something that we over here at PHNX Sun Devils are too worried about. But if there is a big piece or a big cog missing, then there's your pitch kind of gone there. Speaking of Sam, though, I do want to touch on that very briefly. Like you mentioned, you wrote about this over at gophnx.com. How do you think his lower body injury and being out for the season, how does that affect him? And there are some ASU fans who feel like this is the last time they saw Sam Leavitt play football at Arizona State, and they expect him to enter the draft. I know when we talked to you a couple of weeks ago, you felt like he could really, really benefit from another year in college. What does this injury do to his potential draft prospects either this year or in the future?
Yeah, I honestly would be really surprised Erik to declare. Look, I'm high on him. Like, I have a starting grade on Sam Leavitt. I had a starting grade on him coming into the year. A lot of things I really like about his game, but I'm starting to feel this way. I actually talked about it on the podcast this week. Is that I feel very strongly that these guys usually should just soak up every single ounce of eligibility that they possibly could. Like JJ McCarthy would be roughly around the same amount of games as Sam did if he were to declare. Like, all right, if you said like that, the book is shut. That it's about the same sample size, and everyone's like, JJ McCarthy's had 3 NFL starts, and we're like killing him for a couple bad throws here and there. And you say it's the same thing. Like Bryce Young had a short leash in Carolina; he gets benched in year 2. Anthony Richardson, very short. You look around the league; there's example after example after example that the patience is not there at this position. You want immediate results because you see Daniel in, you see Drake May come in, you see these guys all across the NFL that are able to come in and hit the ground running. To me, like, you want to put yourself in best position to be able to do that. It's not even necessarily about like draft slot. Like, there are plenty of quarterbacks that could just come out this draft. Ty Simpson from Alabama, Dante Moore, they come in and be QB1. But if you're talking about like, hey, like I've got 14 starts to my name, that's just not a huge sample size to say like you've got this whole mental Rolodex of coverages, your ability to recognize pressure and deal with everything that comes with being the guy at the position. So for me, I think that it would be prudent for Sam Leavitt to say like, hey, I'm going to come back for another year, injury or no injury. Like if he stayed fully healthy, I would have felt this way about him. And this is coming from someone who likes him as a future starter in the league. I just think that would be a better decision for him overall.
We got Fran Duffy, All-City NFL draft expert. Last one from me, Fran, before we let you get on with your day. Any final thoughts on Tyson, Leavitt, any other Arizona State player that you feel like, I got the platform, I gotta get this off my chest right now?
No, I think that when you're looking at those guys, I think the book is pretty set with those guys. I'm fascinated to see Riley Brown, down the stretch here and see what he can do. Obviously, we know that he's got some eligibility. If he wanted to try and declare for this draft, that would be an interesting name to keep an eye on. But like I said, I think that the possibility definitely exists where they all look at each other and they say, like, let's take another run at this in 2026.
And for those who are just joining us now, if they're loving the draft conversation we're having here and they're NFL draft sickos, where can they find you and where can they find your work?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Duffy NFL, on Blue Sky, Instagram wherever you could find me on social media, I'm out there. But check out the All NFL Draft newsletter. Check out the All NFL Draft podcast. That should be available wherever you get your podcast. We've got the Die Hard Draft Guide. Become a Die Hard. Go PHNX.com. You can check out all my reports on all of these players.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Fran. Make sure you tap in with his coverage at an all-city level, and especially for all of you college football fanatics out there. There's nobody better doing it. Thank you, Fran.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Eric.
I appreciate him as well. Now, it's time for the Deli Man and I to maybe talk a little bit about Jordyn Tyson, Sam Leavitt, what the future of this program holds. I know we got some comments in the chat, and we're going to get to all of it right after our final break. Look, if you don't like this conversation that we're having about Jordyn Tyson, maybe it's getting your heart rate pumping, maybe your anxiety is through the roof, go check out some Pure Edibles, because Pure Edibles was founded in Arizona and available in 130 dispensaries statewide. Pure gummies, not covered in sugar like all of their competitors. In fact, they're a full-fledged candy company offering gummies, Kicks, which is their version of Starburst, chews, and hard candies alike. But my favorite thing about Pure Edibles is that they clearly list all the effects on the tin. You want to be sleepy, you know that you're going to get that. What about relaxed, uplifted, balanced? They've got all of that labeled on the tin, and inside the tin, unique gummies blending cannabinoids such as CBN, CBG, CBD, and of course, marijuana-derived THC. They're easy to dial in your exact dose. You can rip them in half, you can bite them in half, which means they're also good to share as well if everybody's above the age of 21. Plus, check out their new collab with Tower Station IPA and get a IPA with a THC twist. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across Arizona. And you know us here, we love Mountain America Credit Union. Of course, Arizona State football plays at Mountain America Stadium, and they love Arizona State University over at Mountain America Credit Union. They do a bunch to help out, like donating $250 to support university athletics for every field goal made. They provide $20,000 in scholarships to local student athletes each year. Plus, they sponsor a shoe donation program to award brand new shoes to community members in need. You can take your finances to new heights with guidance from Mountain America, including getting the My Style checking account with built-in benefits such as restaurant deals, mobile phone protection, telehealth access, identity protection, loan rate discount, offers on travel and events, and so much more. So make My Style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle to apply. Insured by NCUA, membership required based on eligibility. Some benefits require no cost registration and activation. Terms, conditions, and exclusions, you already know it, they apply. Big shout out to everybody joining us here in chat. We've got John in the chat saying, sitting Jordyn Tyson for the league, ? F him then. What a culture ASU has. I didn't like when Cam Ward sat against Iowa State. What a joke. Well, John, there's no official word on what Jordyn Tyson will be doing. I do think it's a conversation that is worth exploring. And I understand. I think a lot of people are upset at the state of college football and just college athletics in general. And there are a lot of kids who don't play bowl games, especially not those high-level, high-profile bowl games, or don't go to the Senior Bowl. That being said, I do in my gut, like if I had to give you a gut check here, John, just me and you talking, John, I think Jordyn Tyson does come back and play this season. And I think Jordyn Tyson wants to come back and play. I think if he doesn't, if for some reason Jordyn Tyson has played his last game at Arizona State for at least this season, if not for the final time ever, I think it's because he can't go. I think it's literally because that hamstring is so volatile, and the risk of him coming back and playing, not just for his draft prospects, just for his future as a healthy NFL or NCAA player, I think that would be the only reason why he doesn't play. I don't think Jordyn Tyson would look around and sit down and say, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to run, because that isn't the culture that Arizona State set. I mean, the culture that Arizona State set was Sam Leavitt pushing through injuries week after week after week after week until he quite literally could not do it anymore. That's the culture that Arizona State set. I don't think that you're going to sit back and see Jordyn Tyson just quit on his team. I genuinely think if Jordyn Tyson does not play for the rest of the season, it is not like he is ready to go and he's just going to be sitting on the sideline. And I'd like to hear what all of you have to think in the chat as well. I do know that, of course, a lot of ASU fans selfishly would like to see Jordyn Tyson play, especially because the prospect of him playing against, a West Virginia team whose defense is subpar, a Colorado's team who might have the worst defense in the Power Four. And then an Arizona team who's also given up high bunches of points to a lot of teams so far this season. And of course, in a game against a team that's your rival that Jordyn Tyson didn't get to play in last year, and you want whatever help you can get because anything could happen in a rivalry game. I think a lot of ASU fans, if they could just push a magic button to make Jordyn Tyson play, of course, you're going to make Jordyn Tyson play. Like it's a non-negotiable. You want him to play. I am curious though, like at what point do you push it if you're Tyson, right? I don't know if that hamstring will be 100% healthy by West Virginia. Maybe he needs to miss West Virginia, right? To get to as close to 100% healthy as possible. Then do you play him against Colorado and U of A? Let's say he has to miss Colorado as well. He's missing 2 games, West Virginia, Colorado, and then there's one more game. I mean, obviously, plus your bowl game, but you don't know what your bowl game is going to be. And I would say, even if he does come back, if ASU loses some of these games that we still don't think they should lose without Sam Leavitt and the rest of the injuries they've suffered, who knows if he plays a bowl game? I think that's a very different conversation than playing a regular season game when you still technically have hopes alive for the Big 12 championship. I would be shocked if he misses 2 games and comes back for the final game. I think if he misses West Virginia, there might still be a chance that he pushes it and comes back against Colorado. Obviously, he has a lot, and I mean a lot of history there in Colorado. Plus, I mean, it's basically like playing against Arizona State's practice squad. At this point, if you're going to be playing against Colorado. Deli Man, I'm curious your thoughts. If you had to check in with your gut, the Deli Jellies, would you say that Jordyn Tyson has played his last game for Arizona State this season?
No, and Kenny even said that he expects him to be ready for Colorado. So I would be shocked if he doesn't play.
Maybe it's just I would also be a little surprised. Maybe it's the Suns fan in me where you hear about a hamstring injury and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, this hamstring injury has taken a lot longer to heal than what we thought. I think with Tyson, it would, I don't know if it would necessarily help his draft stock, but I do think it would help him mentally to get back out there and to play. Like Fran mentioned, and like we know, he's gone through so much on an injury side of things. And he wasn't able to end last season healthy. And we know that killed him. And obviously, if we had to predict the end of this season versus the end of last season's was a lot more high profile than what we are expecting the end of this season to be. Now, can they pull off a miraculous run? Technically, there's still a chance. I don't think anybody here would tell you that they predict that. I know I wouldn't tell you that I predict that. But I think it would mean a lot for Jordyn Tyson to end this season healthy and on the field. And sure, maybe it helps his draft stock. Maybe it hurts his draft stock. But when you listen to Jordyn Tyson speak, when you see the type of person that he is, I don't think he's the type of guy that just only cares about that. Again, which is why I think if he doesn't play, there's a legitimate reason. Tony, sometimes I'm just like, don't acknowledge Tony in the chat. But Tony says, if Dilly bolts, I will pay for a therapist since you are a good person. Well, I do appreciate you saying that I'm a good person. He's not bolting for SEC country, Tony. I really hate to break it to you, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when Ralph joins us tomorrow. But the worry level with Kenny Dillingham is at a negative $2 billion. Tony, I'll bet you everything that I own. I'll bet you my entire home setup here that Kenny Dillingham is still going to be the Arizona State Sun Devils coach for a long, long time. But that's not what we're talking about here. I want to know what everybody in the chat does think about this Jordyn Tyson situation. And Shane, if Tyson comes back and let's say he doesn't play against West Virginia, but he plays against Colorado and he doesn't look 100% right. Do you play him again if he wants to play the next weekend against Arizona, or at that point do you have to protect the player against themselves?
I don't think there's protecting anybody in their last year of college football.
That's fair. I mean, but you don't think so? Because no. I think that there might be hey, we care about you and your future, and you're clearly if this was the Big 12 championship, maybe you could go. If this was a college football playoff game, maybe you should go. But there's a big chance of you reopening that door that nobody wants to open if you go out there and play. I think they would still stop him from playing. I don't think they would just let him play no matter what. I mean, maybe. Also, I've found very interesting Fran kind of mentally keeping that door open for Jordyn to come back next year. I mean, I would love that. I think everybody would love that if Jordyn Tyson came back from a selfish perspective. But I think I'd be shocked if Tyson is not gone after this year. I mean, look, clearly you can't predict the future when it comes to college football. And I think everybody on Arizona State, they want to say expectations be damned. They want to say, oh, it doesn't matter, whatever. I think that a lot of them would say that they didn't expect to be not out of the race, but as far back in the Big 12 championship race as they did this year. And of course, injuries and a lot of unforeseen circumstances have come with a part of that. But I think because it's so volatile and you can't predict, I guess, the success level that you'll have. Plus, Totri and I went over it earlier this week. This team is going to lose a lot of senior production, especially off of that defensive end. I would be shocked if Jordyn Tyson does decide to come back to college football next year, because especially I think the injuries also play a really big part of that as well. He might want to play another year with Sam Leavitt and Kenny Dillingham, but I think because he knows how much work and effort and preparation he's had to put in to stay ready, to stay healthy, to recover from his previous injuries, the more football he plays on a non-NFL level, the bigger the risk would be for him to sustain another major injury. And of course, that's an unfortunate way of thinking about it, but like that is just the truth. Lee says he's not coming back. Let's not even entertain that, because Jeremiah Smith's eligible next year. Dreaming is free, but let's not even open that box. Yeah, I think the only reason why he would come back, and I agree with you, Lee, when Fran said 75-25, and I agree with Fran on a lot of stuff. I think Fran is very, very good at his job, and I highly, highly recommend all of you to go and check out the written work, the podcasting work. It's really awesome NFL draft coverage, the best in the country. He really does put in his time and his effort and his work on it. The 75-25 thing, I think, was shockingly low to me, because I've never even considered Jordyn Tyson coming back next year. I guess crazier things have happened, right? It's not like he's a certified number 1 overall pick. I mean, maybe he gets into some conversations and maybe he's not going as high as he wants. And yeah, we know Jeremiah Smith is eligible next year, but that doesn't mean that Jordyn Tyson still can't go higher, I guess, next year than what he did this year, right? I still would be absolutely floored. I think Sam Leavitt obviously comes back. I'm not worried about him leaving the transfer portal, and I'm not worried about him committing to go to the draft. I can't imagine that Jordyn Tyson sits down and looks at Arizona State, and as much as he loves Arizona State, and we know that he would do whatever he can to give this season a shot in the arm, do whatever he can to help out this program and to get another Big 12 championship, and do whatever he can to be on the field for it. As much as we know that he cares and that he really has that give and F factor about it, and as much as we know that all of the players at Arizona State feels like there's a different type of connection to the program, it feels like there's a different type of connection to the coaching staff, it feels like there's a different type of connection to the fans, which is, again, a testament to recruiting kids that want to be here, not forcing kids to stay here, and being surrounded by people who want to be in this environment, who want to represent Arizona State University, who want to give their all for this team. Obviously, Jordyn Tyson exemplifies that to maybe the best degree on this team, with what he's had to fight through and the work that he's had to put in just to be available to play football again, just to be as good as he is, to be a guy that we're talking about, in my mind, as a certified top 10 pick, especially as we get closer to the draft, go through the combine. I think he'll really impress at the combine. And I think the more the guys just talk to Jordyn Tyson, GMs and scouts talk to Jordyn Tyson, they're going to just fall in love with him. As much as we know that he loves Arizona State, I cannot imagine that he sits down and that love is enough to keep him here, because you also just have to look like realistically, right? Business-wise, statistic-wise, like what is the best move for me? Now, maybe, and again, we can't put ourselves in Jordyn Tyson's head, and to play devil's advocate, maybe he sits down and has a conversation with Sam Leavitt. I know him and Sam are extremely close friends, right? Maybe he sits down and has a conversation with Hines Ward, right? A guy who's had a long career in the NFL at the position, obviously, that Jordyn Tyson plays. Maybe he sits down and talks with Marcus Arroyo. Of course, he'll sit down and he'll talk with Kenny Dillingham. And they'll say, you know what? You can go to the league. Maybe that is what looks like the best decision for you, but the door is always open for you to come back. Maybe he wants to. I mean, again, like, you only get to be in college for a certain amount of time. You only get to be a college football player for a certain amount of time. I mean, Lee in the chat says, rumor is that Dante Moore is coming back to Oregon. Heard that today. The reason why that's important is the other Oregon guy, and they could pay him Nike money. Is Sand the other Oregon guy, and they could pay him Nike money. I mean, I think with a guy like Dante Moore coming back, I think quarterbacks is a little bit of a different conversation than wide receiver, because you heard Fran kind of talk about that, where the more reps that you can get in college, the better it is for a quarterback. And I think specifically for these quarterbacks that have had one really good year or maybe two really good years, you know, you've still got a lot of tape to do. Plus, I mean, the NFL is just a brutal place for young quarterbacks, right? I mean, the clock is ticking immediately. And a lot of these coaches and these teams that are going to be drafting you up high in the top of the draft, they're not good. The franchises aren't good. Like, franchises still don't know how to deal with and evaluate quarterbacks. And not to get into a Cardinals conversation, but it's something they've always struggled with. So if you are a quarterback, you might want to just get as good as possible to be immune to maybe the poor franchise that'll draft you. Plus, look, these guys are making millions of dollars. I mean, millions of dollars between NIL, between endorsement money, like everything. I mean, these guys are getting wealthy and wealthy enough. Honestly, there are some guys that might just end up being able to become generationally wealthy from playing a couple of years of college football. Jordyn Tyson, probably, if he returns, could demand one of the highest pay rates in the country for any position out of anybody at any school. I think he's already, I'm not going to say he's near the top of the top, because obviously you look at some of the stars in the SEC, in the Big Ten, the buckets that they get to kind of get their money from are a lot bigger than Big 12 and, of course, Arizona State, even though ASU has done a lot to help boost that side of things. Jordyn Tyson would be a top earner in college football next year, would be on the Heisman watch list, would be on the Blitnikoff watch list. He would presumably have Sam Leavitt throwing him the ball. Hopefully Arizona State goes out, revamps their offensive line, maybe continues to find another weapon or two. Maybe that's enough for him. Maybe he loves Tempe enough. Maybe he's making enough money that he doesn't care about his contract starting in the NFL. Maybe he feels like he has unfinished business here. I don't want to say that it's a 0% possibility, but for me personally, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine that he doesn't do it. But I mean, there have been crazier things in football. There have been crazier things in other sports. There have been guys that have stuck around for longer. There have been players that have committed to the draft when it doesn't feel like it was the right move for them to commit to the draft. And again, with Sam Leavitt, I'd be shocked if Sam Leavitt isn't back at Arizona State next year, but I can't say that it's 100% for sure impossible that he doesn't transfer to another school or he doesn't enter the draft because he wants to start that clock on getting his contract extension, right? Or getting his first contract after his rookie one. Again, all of these things are possible. You can never put yourself in the minds of these athletes, right? And especially, I think, in the minds of Arizona State. I think when you look at college teams in general and college athletes in general, they're hard to figure out. I think with Arizona State, it's such a unique case study, right? Because what do we hear from all of the recruits that show up? What do we hear from all the players that are there, the coaches that are there? They only have people on the roster. They only have people in the building from the top to the bottom that truly, in their soul, want to be there. Not just because they think it's a good opportunity, not just because, Arizona State's the only school that wanted me, or they're the school that offered me the most amount of money, or I saw myself getting the playing time. Well, I'm sure that those are things that definitely play into the conversation. All those kids want to be in Tempe. We saw kids leave from last year's team, a Big 12 championship winning team, that left because, they felt like there were other places for them to be. And Kenny Dillingham doesn't mince words. Kenny Dillingham doesn't beg for them to stay. Kenny Dillingham doesn't try to move mountains to get a kid to change his mind about wanting to be here. Everybody wants to be in Tempe that is in Tempe. If you're truly happy and other people don't understand that or aren't looking at it from that perspective, because usually in college football, most people aren't like truly happy. They're maybe just there because of the opportunity or the money or because they think it's their best chance to win or go on to an NFL level. I'm sure a lot of dudes are really happy. With Jordyn, if he's like, man, I couldn't ask for anything else. I love my friends here. They're making good money. I feel like this is the right move for me. I'll still go to the NFL. If anything, I'll get better. Maybe my draft stock doesn't get better. Maybe where I get selected doesn't go higher. Sure, I'm going out with what some people are calling the LeBron James of wide receivers in Jeremiah Smith. Maybe I'm Dwayne Wade. Right? I mean, maybe he feels like to get himself in the best place, to stick with Arizona State strength and conditioning, to not get picked and go to a team that doesn't have a good quarterback figured out that's going to be throwing you the ball when I'm sure he'll know before anybody if Sam Leavitt's going to be coming back next year. It's just a reality that I hadn't considered. And I hadn't considered it because I just don't think it's going to happen. I do not think that is, at the end of the day, what happens. More often than not, when you have a blue chip prospect like Jordyn Tyson, and a guy that didn't just walk into college football like, certified top 10 pick. Nope. Nobody was talking about Jordyn Tyson, first round wide receiver going into last year. There wasn't even a conversation fully about like, is he certified ASU's wide receiver 1 at the start of last year? I know a lot of people, including Totri, including Shane, were looking at him as that guy and looking at him as somebody who could be that. But from a national perspective, I don't think anybody was sitting back and going like Jordyn Tyson, top 10 pick. Jordyn Tyson, first wide receiver off the board. So this is a guy that has worked his ass off. Literally. He has worked I guess not literally, but almost literally, worked his ass off to get to the point that he is at today. To get to the point where he's overcome one of the most brutal knee injuries that you'll ever experience from a professional athlete, right? To work through undergoing a broken collarbone and missing 3 of the biggest games of your career. U of A rivalry game on the road. You have the Big 12 championship, and then you have the college football playoff game where they lost to Texas, where, of course, he sits back and probably tells himself that if he plays, they win. Because I think a lot of people tell themselves that. And honestly, with how close the margins are, you got a guy like Jordyn Tyson, your odds to win are a lot better. So he fights through that mental hurdle. He gets better. He gets stronger. He gets faster. He comes back this year. Team hits some adversity. Offensive lineman gets some adversity. Sam Leavitt, a little bit shooken up at the start of the year. Things kind of steady out. Jordyn Tyson continues to produce. Okay, now Jeff Sims is in, has a bad game against Utah. All right, bye week. Sam Leavitt back. Jordyn Tyson cooks Texas Tech, pulls his hammy. Okay. Now he's looking at the rest of this season. He sees a loss to Houston up close and personal. That's got to be deflating. Then to go on the road and see his team beat Iowa State, now he might see it as like, hey, I've worked this hard. My team needs me. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it my all. Or it's, hey, I've put myself in a position to be a really high draft pick. And if I push it and I come back right now, that might end up hurting me more. I mean, nobody knows the actual severity of his injury except for the people on the team. I just think it's fascinating. I personally wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play another game for Arizona State. I think my gut would tell me that he does, but I don't think that if I fast forward and say, Jordyn Tyson's last game as a Sun Devil was against Texas Tech, where he did the fake hammy celebration, I wouldn't be surprised, because these hamstring injuries, they linger and they are serious. And if you've gotten to a point where that one of your main knocks in the draft is going to be your availability, could go one of 2 ways. You can get, more points from a draft perspective for coming back and playing. Hey, this guy was healthy enough to play. Hey, he went out there and put it all out for his team. And especially if he goes out there and just rips, especially with Jeff Sims at quarterback, I think that is certainly something that could help boost him. Or he goes back and Maybe he plays a game and his hamstring doesn't respond the right way. And now all of a sudden it's like, wow, that injury bug tag is going to be on him even a little bit more. It's not an easy decision. I don't envy the coaching staff. I don't envy Jordyn Tyson for having to go through this, and especially kind of the precarious position that Arizona State finds themselves in the Big 12, and one that, Totri and I recorded something that'll be going out for all of you to listen to about what their path is, back to a Big 12 championship. The fact that it is still technically, a possibility. I think that is certainly a factor for Jordyn Tyson. I'm sure that is certainly something that he's weighing in his mind. I don't think this team ever rules out them doing the impossible. It's already out. Yay. It's already out. Go watch it. Go listen to it. I'm pretty sure it's in your audio feeds as well. And then you hit that like button, subscribe, rate 5 stars if you're listening on audio. Just keep running, become a diehard, all the things that we tell you to do. I think that also kind of looms over this as well. If Arizona State beats West Virginia without Jordyn Tyson, and maybe this weekend goes their way and the results that we talked about in that video that is already out here on PHNX Sports, if that happens, maybe that looms over his head. Maybe that pushes him to come back. Because if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that Jordyn Tyson doesn't want to sit on the sideline for important games. Nobody does, but I think especially Jordyn Tyson, who's had to sit on the sideline for a lot of games in his college career and his team's most important games over his college career. I don't think anybody wants to sit on the sideline. I think Jordyn Tyson specifically does not want to sit on the sideline and watch the season pass him by. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm just sitting here in my chair in the corner of my house, rambling and giving you conjecture about what could and what could not happen. But we really don't know until we go out there and we see, right? Sam Leavitt, we didn't know he was going to miss the Utah game until it was on the injury report a couple days before. And it was like, oh crap, that happened, right? Jordyn Tyson, we didn't know was going to miss that Houston game until later in the week. We still have a week, I think, until we have a really good idea on what's going to be going on with Jordyn Tyson. Obviously, I think a lot of people aren't expecting him to play that West Virginia game and are expecting him to play that Colorado game. Maybe he has a really good off week. Maybe he has a really good bye week and he progresses better. Maybe him staying out the last couple of weeks was totally precautionary, right? And he actually doesn't have concern for re-injuring things. I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. We're just going to have to wait and see, hear from Kenny next week, get the injury report, and break it down then. I appreciate y'all tapping in with Fran, Duffy, and I for the first half of the show, and then listening to Ruby's ramblings for the second half of this show. Tomorrow, we will have Ralph Amsden on the program for the whole show. We will be talking about what Arizona State needs to do to keep Kenny Dillingham. Not just will Kenny go and why Kenny loves ASU, because we know that he loves ASU, but what does ASU have to do to ensure that not just this coaching cycle, but every coaching cycle going forward, they are doing enough for the program to keep Kenny Dillingham in maroon and gold. Very excited to have that conversation with Ralph. Plus, we'll get you ready for a weekend of Big 12 football. Even though Arizona State doesn't play, doesn't mean it's not a big slate in the Big 12 with big games, with Big 12 championship implications. So Ralph and I will get you ready for that on Friday. Monday, I've got another very special guest that I'm excited on. Actually, two very special guests that I'm excited to bring you on Monday, and then Tuesday, it'll be the Ralph Show yet again. And we're breaking down, getting ready for West Virginia, Arizona State. Appreciate all of y'all tapping in on a rare Thursday show. Back to our normal game schedule next week with no Thursday show, a noon Friday show, and then, of course, pregame and postgame against West Virginia next Saturday for the second to last home game. In the meantime, like I said, you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member today, like Parker, like Sharon, like Em, like Deborah, like everybody in the chat with green in their name and a logo next to it. You get access to exclusive emojis and also exclusive content as well that has been flooding your YouTube feeds. Become a diehard today at gophnx.com/join, and make sure you follow the show to keep up to date with everything at PHNX_Sun Devils. That's on Twitter, and that is also on Instagram as well. If that is your social media platform of choosing, you can always go ahead and check us out there too. Of course, you can follow Anthony Totri even when he's abandoned me. As always, you can follow him at Anthony_Totri. You can follow me at RUBY, the passenger princess, sitting in the driver's seat once again. And of course, you can follow the Deli Man at Shane Deef.
Watching a man talk to himself for an hour as always.
Hey, you know how it goes. And y'all are watching too. And I know all of y'all will be back tomorrow. It'll be me and it'll be Ralph. So somebody much smarter and somebody for me to bounce off of and to just talk ball with. Excited to do that and excited to keep on talking Sun Devils on the bye week. In the meantime, go Devils and peace.
We all silly like the mayor.